Hi, this is Christopher Spera, and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 99. No, it's really not Microsoft's fault, kids. Recorded live Sunday, July 21st, 2024, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I'm Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief over here at iTechGear.org. Joining us today, getting ready for the big hike. Brother Joe McLaughlin, how are you, sir?
I am doing quite well. I am at there's 13 days until the Mammoth March of Southeast Ohio. I am feeling very good. I am down 100 and some pounds.
Woo-hoo.
And I'm going for another 100. So
awesome. And then you'll
other than that, I'm gonna record
there you go. You'll be all of what? 67 pounds, right? At that point.
No, 180, 170. But yeah, no. And I am gonna do a retro arcade show, a late one. I usually try and record it and for a Saturday release. This is
Linux Link.
We always record that. That was always recorded every Wednesday. So I don't even see. I don't do show prep on that one. But this one I do. This is all on the precursor to video games, the mechanical games.
Ooh,
so like bowling ones, and they
like
had a motorcycle
pinball at the arcade.
A little bit of that too, yeah.
Right.
Most of the ones from Chicago Coin.
Little skee ball. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that because without that, we wouldn't have arcades. Well, we wouldn't have had arcades then. We don't have arcades now unless you count Dave and Buster's.
That's true. That's true. No, they went out. Unfortunately, in the early to mid '90s, and never to come back again. Likely.
Yeah, not like it was.
Nope. Also joining us this week, the dulcet tones are back for more. Former contributing editor over Gear Diary, and of course, here over at iTechGear.org, Mr. Chris Gavula. How are you, sir?
Oh, we're hanging in there. Been a long week, and next week's going to be long, and hopefully soon things will settle down, on a personal note.
It's not Microsoft's fault. It really is.
Not telling myself that.
Not yet.
And again, laughing in the background, the former co-owner of WUGNET Publications, and of course, editor here at iTechGear.org, Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Occasionally, it's nice to say something good about our folks out there in Redmond. So we are tonight. But anyway, in the interest of, down where I live anyway, keeping our retired generation involved with technology, I started a smart home special interest group a couple of months ago.
Nice.
And amazingly, we had like 60 people sign up for it. We're in our second month of presentations and lessons. And I find this really rewarding to see this many seniors with even an interest in learning how to automate various aspects of their homes. So I'm covering both Apple Home and Google Home equally. And it's just been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Who would have thought?
Awesome. That is great to hear. You know what also I think is kind of cool and good to hear? The iPad M4 is in the house. Not this house, of course, but another house, right? So, Mr. Chris Gavula, you've gotten one, right?
I do.
And we have a review of the iPad M4 primed and ready to go on the site.
Do we now?
Coming week. We do.
Well, good for us.
Tell us about it, though.
Well, basically, it's some early thoughts on the device and how it's some commentary on what other folks have said about it as well. The general consensus is that this is really great hardware, and I would agree with that. Some people feel it's hobbled by the OS. I don't necessarily agree with that for a variety of reasons, but I understand where they're coming from as well.
This is a really the M4 is a really powerful processor. So.
It is. But one thing I think is funny, every time one of these comes out, I think everybody thinks Apple's going to make this huge leap, and Apple never makes this huge leap, or almost never.
Well, Apple is not a company of huge leaps. It really isn't.
What they tend to be, they tend to figure out what works, stay with what works, and then
Mhm.
make smaller kind of evolutionary kinds of changes, not revolutionary changes. And that's
Right.
what they're about. And
Right.
that's how they're able to keep their base going forward. But the challenge with that, of course, is if they don't change enough, nobody
Sure.
buys it. Why should they? Right. So
Right.
that's always the challenge that they face. And that's true with I'm going to kind of blend things a little bit with both the device, the
Mhm.
the M4 iPad, as well as the upcoming iPad OS 18, because they all kind of go together pretty heavily.
Sure.
But in any case, so this new M4, it has the new M4 processor, bigger, better,
Mhm.
faster, everything you would expect. It has an improved screen. It uses an OLED screen for the first time. This sort of what they call this dual layer OLED, which basically means that even outside, it's pretty freaking bright, even outside for the most part. Certainly brighter than any past one that's been put out.
Right. So that was my
Uh,
next question. It's brighter than the others
Oh yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah, definitely brighter. And I've got other OLED based devices that are not Apple devices that are definitely not bright out in
Okay.
the world. I mean, I don't know that I'm going to sit in the middle of a bright sunny park all day, but then again, with my cataract surgery, sitting out in bright anything is kind of annoying anyway these days.
Sure.
But having said that, it's a gorgeous screen, and if you're especially in an indoor setting, it's so vivid. It's better than any OLED that I've seen in any recent time. Really, really, really well done thing. And the other big thing that they've changed,
Mhm.
side accessory, is the Magic Keyboard that goes along with this. It only works with these iPad Pros.
Mhm.
The new keyboard has kind of a metal surface on the top. Keys have a slight bit more travel. If you didn't like the design of the previous one, you won't like this one either. But if you did, and you enjoyed the previous design and the way it sort of hangs partially over the keyboard, this is a similar setup. The whole thing, especially the iPad itself, is much physically lighter than its predecessor, which means if you use it for ebook reading, it's a
Right.
lot easier to hold it for a long time.
Right.
Much easier to hold it because the weight isn't there that used to be there. It's thin, but it's rigid. So I'm not going to be sitting here bending it in half. Although there's plenty of YouTubes out there with people who did and tried to do
Why
just
they
that and
would
what it
do,
took
I
to
mean,
do that.
honest to God, look, all I have to say to those folks out there that like to go in and tear these things down, and while they do the tear down to show you what's there, they completely destroy the device. Look, I will pay you not as much for the doggone iPad, but please don't. If you want to go ahead and get rid of it, send it to us. We'll
Yeah,
take good
no
care of it.
kidding.
Honest to
I
goodness.
get we're
We
doing this so
won't
you don't
bend
have
it.
to kind of. I get that we're going to do it so you don't have to kind of thing, and you can see at which point it'll break. It's like I just don't
You're
understand
killing
doing
me,
that
Smalls. Come on.
to
Did
a
Jack already do that?
No,
Yeah.
honest to God, it just absolutely blows my mind. And it's like,
But
no,
it's been
don't,
done.
shit. You know,
Yeah. Obviously I think they do it because
Hey.
people cringe. It's like watching a horror movie. You just want to.
yes.
You can't
Well,
believe
they
the
do
train
it for
wreck's
that
happening.
mad YouTube money. That's why they're doing it.
Well,
I mean,
that's true.
let's
That
face
too, but-
that. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
so-
like
So
everyone
the
likes jerry rig everything. So
Well, there you
Yeah.
go. So the
Honest to
other thing that they
goodness.
added into this is they updated the Apple Pencil Pro.
Mhm.
So now it works like its predecessor, except there's now a squeeze function, and the squeeze
Uh-huh.
function in many apps, you can change how this works in the settings on the device too, by
Sure.
the way.
Sure.
But it will often bring up a sub menu if the app supports kind of a sub menu, like a spin
Uh-huh.
dial kind of menu around
Sure.
around the pencil. But what's interesting about it is quite a few apps, including Apple Notes, let you change the way that squeeze function functions. And I happen to have it changed so that if I'm in Notes or if I'm in a number of note-taking apps or other apps out there, it will just change between whatever primary writing drawing tool I'm using and the eraser as you squeeze it. And then when you let it go, it goes back to the other tool. You don't have to tip it over. You don't have to erase it. You don't have to double tap it. You don't have to do anything. Squeeze it, let it go. Squeeze it, let it. And it's actually really, really, really functional for note taking.
For the brief minute that I had one of those, I thought that was one of the best feature I
To me,
found.
that's one of the most compelling things about the new
Absolutely.
one. And again, you have to have the new Pro. You have to have the new devices to support the new pencil. And somebody said, "Oh, gee, it's not fair that they didn't put it on the old ones." It's like, well, what you guys have to understand is with the way that pen technology works on the screen, part of it's in the pen and part of it's in the screen. The way the sensors work. If that screen can't do that, you're not going to make a pencil that's going to do it either.
It's the screen hardware
So,
itself.
you could argue, oh, they're making you buy a new one. Well, the technology is different, kids. You could argue, I don't know exactly how this works, and I could be wrong in this particular case, but in general,
sure,
the reason they don't back support these things on older devices is because the hardware isn't there to support it. So, sometimes we've seen other examples where that's not always true. The last thing, the big thing that I would call out is they changed the camera setup a bit, and they removed the wide angle. Removed the wide angle lens from the camera on the iPad. Now, I don't know what the reasoning was behind this. I have any idea. And there's something else I'll mention in a moment, but it doesn't affect me too much. I don't really use the iPad for photo taking too often.
I was just going to say, how many
and I think a lot of people,
really use an iPad for that.
But I'm not sure why they took it out either. But the cameras that are there are as good or better than their predecessors. So in some ways, it sort of covers it anyway. And I don't think in terms of day-to-day use, I don't think most people are going to notice the difference or care about the difference.
Notice it, Chris, as people like appraisers and real estate.
Oh, sure. Are they using the iPad to take a picture?
A lot. They really
on
do.
an iPad? On an iPad?
Largely because it's probably one device fits all.
The iPad to do their work.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha. So I mean, it's a negative, and I don't know why they did it, but they did do it, and it's worth mentioning that they did it. And it's a little odd. It was just kind of an odd choice in my thinking with all of that. I didn't quite understand why they chose to do that particular thing. But in general, the device has way more pluses than minuses, and it's a really solid thing. And a lot of people are going, "Wow, this actually." And the one, and I think people are really kind of surprised at how good it is compared to it. All we thought was, oh, it's a little better screen and a little faster. No, there's more than that. I think the last thing I'll mention that they did, for those who've had previous ones, that the camera was on the top, but that's when you held it perpendicular in a kind of a portrait mode. Most of us were using it in a landscape mode, which meant the camera was to the side, which was really kind of odd in terms of when you're trying to use it on meetings. Now what they've done is they've moved the location of the camera to the long edge of the device.
Okay.
And it's up there now, which is interesting because that's also where the pen magnetically goes. So I'm not sure how they worked around that with the magnets and all, but they did. And they added, they made sure that your center stage, which is what keeps you sort of in the video focus if you move around, all of which work very, very, very well. Having it in the middle works very well. It looks good. It's a high quality camera. It's better than the webcam on most PCs. It's just a very good quality camera. So they did a good job with this device.
I see as a big plus. If it's better than your standard webcam.
Yep.
Not too bad, especially for meetings and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you were on it now as part of the podcast. So,
and I actually am.
There you go. And it looks, really, really good. The stage manager functions very well. And it's a very impressive piece of hardware. The one thing that I do want to comment on, and I know you already mentioned this, but I do want to chime in here just a little bit related to the OS related.
I was going to lead into that next.
Concerns, right? Did the people were expecting something different from
and depending on who you talk to, what they expected was
enough,
different things.
You also have
I did
coming up on the site again later this week an iOS 18 preview.
I do.
Now that the public beta is out.
Now that the public beta is out there. Yeah. So iOS 18 is going to be their next iteration, and not all the features that are going to be in it are available yet, even in the public betas.
And they probably won't be until well after
Correct.
it's out.
Yeah.
So
No,
into
not until the
2025
first of
for some
next
of these
year,
things.
actually.
But
Yeah.
some of those features are in there now, and there are some things going on in here now. There's some little cleanups that have been done to Stage Manager, which is their a multitasking kind of approach. And I really like Stage Manager. And one of the things I'll say is, I hear this all the time. Oh, it's not as good as other solutions out there. It can't do the job. It's not as good for productivity. And here's the thing, kids. The thing that tends to be compared against most is Samsung's DeX, which is a clever, very desktop-like solution. Everybody wants this desktop-like solution. However, kids, it works on one screen only. Stage Manager work on your iPad and on an external screen
and on
at the same
an external
time.
monitor. Yeah,
it's actually more functional for those of us who have multiple windows open. It's more functional. I gotta tell you.
And if you're working with your iPad and your Mac at the same time, they will go ahead and sync up, and so you can get your iPad app on your Mac and vice versa. So
I'm going to tell you right now, I have my Mac is sitting to my left, my iPad is sitting to my right. I have a one of those big 49-inch curved screens above me.
Love those.
Split in two. The iPad's taking over the right half, the Mac is taking over the left half, and I'm using a single mouse and keyboard to manage the whole thing and scrolling at it as if it's a 4-screen device.
Gotta love that.
What I'm doing.
Gotta love
amazing.
that.
Dragging crap back and forth, all of that.
Absolutely. And that's so there are some things that were there. I think what most people were most concerned about was with the desktop power of the M4 chip.
Yeah.
All right. And to be honest, you and I have been saying this since the M1.
We have.
All right. Where's the desktop powered operating system for this thing?
So there's two things then. Let me split that up a little bit for you.
Go ahead.
One is the OS itself, the conversation about, the OSB. And the OS has gotten more powerful since we started saying that, by the way. OS Stage Manager has gotten there. It's gotten better. It's more flexible. They've improved it with each iteration. The other piece of that has been the apps. We want to see the apps. And strangely enough, there have been some real high-end kind of professional desktop quality apps, more coming from third parties than from Apple. Apple has had a few,
and
but in general,
that's really where I think a lot of those folks are wanting to see that desktop quality. And I think part of it, at least I know for me, and this is a personal thing, I prefer more of a desktop interface with something that, especially with something that's most power with all that power. However, it doesn't. The desktop metaphor may not necessarily work on that size device.
It might not. But here's what I'm thinking at. I think that's the crux of the disappointment for a lot of folks. They want it to be more desktop like, and I would argue maybe that's not what you want. Maybe that's what you think you need because that's what you're used to. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to go. And maybe even for desktops, that's not the best way to go in the future. We did things before we had desktops, on our computers. We functioned. And it never occurred to us there was another way to do it. We kept thinking this is the only way to do it. Then desktop metaphors came along and we thought, oh, wow. And at first it was hard. People don't remember this. I'm old enough to remember before they existed. And people were like, this is never going to work. Nobody's going to buy this. It's too much work and too heavy and too hard to make it work.
Yeah.
That improved over time and people started doing that. Well, maybe the desktop metaphor has met its time. Don't know yet. These things tend to be gradual in their change, not sudden. So some people want it. I know a lot of, people who said, oh, just let me run Mac OS on these things. I don't think that's the answer to the question because again, if nothing else, Mac OS is not touch-centric. A touch-centric version of Mac would look very different than the current version of Mac OS. So what does that really mean? And I think that's why that's part of why they haven't done it. Part of it is cannibalization.
And they say they're not going to do it.
And they say they're not going to do it. Now, having said that, I'm actually, what I'm seeing is, and if you go out there on YouTube and other places, you're going to see some people have, there's just been all these people have used this as a challenge. Oh, I'm going to go try it for a week. And then they come back and say, gee, it didn't work like my Mac, so it's no good. Okay, that's great. That you didn't really try it then, kids. I got news for you. You need to understand that the way this thing works today, whether you like it or not, the way it works is not the way that a Mac works. It works differently.
It does.
If you're able to do your work the way, and I don't mean you have to model your work after this, but you have to recognize the tool for what it is. Does the tool do what you need it to do, and can it do things in a way that's functional for you? Not can it do the way you used to do it, but can it do it in a way that's functional for what you need to do? And the answer is yeah, you should be checking it out. If the answer is no, then you don't need to be buying one of these things. You need to be looking at a Mac or even at a Windows machine, depending on what you need and what apps you need and that kind of thing.
Right.
So it's really about,
use case.
Use case. And can the tool, and some people have come back and actually said, I didn't think I could do this, but guess what? This actually is very functional, because some of the things that you give up that aren't as easy to do as they are on a desktop, there's other things that are much easier to do than they are on a desktop. Correct. So those trade-offs have been worth it for some folks, and for some folks, I suspect they're not. So, for me, it's great. I tend to use it. And so there's two use cases. One is either work the way that the iPad works, or use it as a companion for your desktop, which is what it was originally intended to be in the first place. If you look at some of the original Steve Jobs conversations, it was a companion.
If you look at Steve Jobs conversations, and if you look at the history of mobile devices, they've never been meant to be something that stands on their own. They've always been meant to be some level of digital companion.
This does very well. But having said that, here's what I'm finding interesting. Even using it as a sort of a companion piece to my laptops and my desktops, it's becoming a bigger part of my work day. Which means sooner or later it may be the primary device for everything, not the secondary. It's very close now. So I think that
for you personally, this is your primary computing device.
It really is. So I do use this probably more than any other device I've got in my lineup. That's true. But what I'm saying is, in general, when we talk about people and how they do their work, it's interesting to watch how these things transition, and they transition slowly. My mother uses an iPad as her primary computing device. She has a desktop computer, and she uses it in the morning to run a couple things that she does specifically in the morning. The rest of the day, she's on her iPad. She literally spends the rest of the day on her when she's not playing her Nintendo. This is my 82-year-old mother, guys. So my mother is pretty tech savvy.
There you go. Well, she had little choice. So
yes, there you go. That's how it worked.
Yep.
So so the point is, it's all about what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it. But if you're going to give this thing a chance and you want to try to give it a chance, give it a chance. Don't try to make it be what you're used to or what you had. Look at the tool for what it is. Try to use the tool for what it can
do, and for what it can do,
and recognize it for what it can't right out the chute.
Sure.
And then try it and see if it works for your use case. It might not, but
it might not. But
I'll tell you what, for those who does, it's a great device. It really is truly a phenomenal device. To me, it's the best of both worlds, the big and the mobile.
Sure. So, if you've got some level of cloud-based app, at least in my use case, right? If I've got like Word that will sync up through OneDrive, or if I'm using Google Docs or whatever, as a writing tool, it is absolutely fantastic. All right, because it's small, it's easy to take wherever I need to take it, and then I can just pop it open and just go. It's instant.
And I actually tend to buy ebook versions of a lot of my technical materials. A lot of my stuff comes down in PDFs. I have the 13-inch version of this thing, so that means I'm seeing full 8.5 by 11, and it is phenomenal for me not to have to carry all of those books and papers that I used to have to carry around when I would go from thing to thing. And everything's just on this thing. I'm on the airplane. I can read my notes, without having to pull out 700 books in my book bag.
Right.
It really has revolutionized how I do some things.
Sure.
In terms of that kind of stuff. And it's, just very, very, very good. So it's all about your use case. But for me, it's made a big difference. And no, I'm not a content creator like some of these other guys you're going to see on YouTube. I have a very different use case.
Absolutely. So, but with me, with writing, and I love to write, it's very, very convenient just to pop it open. It's instant on, go right to the app that I want, pick up right where I left off, and boom, there I am.
And
so for that, it's really very, very good. But from an iOS 18 preview, is there anything else that has really caught your eye?
A couple other quick things. So they've added a calculator now, which some people say, oh, great. But that calculator on this one has an interesting feature called Math Notes, which actually also carries into the regular Notes app.
Okay.
And it carries into, and they've also updated calendar and reminders, which we'll talk about in a minute, which I believe Larry's going to be talking about in a minute.
Yep.
But this math notes is very, very cool. You can actually write the math, just handwrite it on the paper and then put an equal sign after it, and it'll do the math, or it'll let you make a graph of it, or
Nice.
and you can do that. It's not just a simple X plus Y equals Z kind of thing. You can actually do, very complicated formulas, and it'll work, and it'll graph them.
Instead of tapping out the buttons, you can sit there and actually
Yep.
scribble with the pen in the
Yep.
calculator, and it'll do the
It's
thing.
really kind of it's really kind of, I hate to use the word magical. Ooh. It's interesting to watch it do it, and the other feature that's one of the AI features that's actually already built in that they've already done. The other one that I want to mention real quickly is, again, if you use Notes and some of these other apps, but Notes is probably the big one that you're going to see it in Apple Notes. If you're doing handwriting and your handwriting is a little less than phenomenal, it's actually going to try to clean up your handwriting, but still leave it in your handwriting style.
This is a big one, and it works.
I
have horrible cursive, and it fixed it. It really.
I was going to say it's not flawless and it's not perfect, but I'll tell you what, it's a heck of a lot more readable after it's done following me than when I write it.
That's cool.
It's very interesting.
That's cool.
Phenomenal. And that's an AI, and that's the kind of thing that I've said before. Those are the kind of AI features that will get people to accept AI.
To jump into AI,
not this idiot
really embrace
stuff
it.
that we're seeing with ask it a question and get an answer that might be
Sure.
wrong back. This is the kind of thing that works. This is the kind of thing that works.
Right.
So
that's cool.
It's very, very cool. And it's another reason, along with that erase and write thing that I mentioned earlier,
right, that
has made note-taking in a meeting a lot better experience for me than it used to be. And I'm more likely to do it now than I am on pencil and paper anymore. Because of that.
That's cool. That's cool. We need something like that for OneNote on a Windows machine. I'm certain that all of that will work in OneNote on your iPad, without a doubt.
No, actually it doesn't. OneNote doesn't support they haven't updated OneNote yet to recognize those new features. I think they will, but they haven't yet.
I would think that they would, at least for iPad. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and you're right. But I think what we're going to see when we see it in OneNote on Windows, it's going to be on ARM devices. It's not going to be on the Intel-based devices.
Probably right. Probably
because that's where the AI features
are going to land. Yeah. Well, and speaking of updated features, Larry, I mean, we had mentioned it just a few moments ago. It appears now that calendar and reminders are officially married in iOS 18. And we had mentioned this a few weeks ago as a possibility, but it is.
They are. They spent the evening together watching an outdoor movie in the backseat of a Corvette, and now they're happily married. So. Yeah. No, honestly, I'm an old Stephen Covey disciple, rest his soul. And I think his form of getting things done, or GTD, is a very, very important part of my life in both personal and work use cases. So for me, I've been waiting for this for literally ever. And it's to date the most important feature in the beta versions of iOS and macOS 15 that I've found. It only took 6+ years maybe for the masses begging Apple to do this.
I would say longer than that, but that's just me, because I'm also a Covey disciple, right?
Are you really good?
Yeah, because that's really where I cut my teeth, right?
It is. I'm not. But I did some research, and literally there are like 7 or 8 million 5-star reviews on the Apple Calendar. I mean, people do like the Apple Calendar.
Sure.
Well, the layout is great. The layout of the calendar is really great.
Product. Now, and also they like the Reminders app, which over the last 4 or 5 years has evolved into a very robust solution for managing tasks and projects across all of your personal work life. But now, importantly, across iOS 18 and Sequoia, you can have both of these apps combined to provide a true GTD solution. I use both apps extensively, and I mean, honestly, I'm in them 20 times a day. I don't. That's not BS.
I was going to say, Larry, I started to use now. When you mentioned that this was a feature in it, I hadn't paid attention before, because it wasn't something I used heavily. But I do use a to-do app, and I do use task apps. I do manage my tasks.
Right.
So I just don't tie them to my calendar. I never have done that. historically. And when you
Oh, all
mentioned
the
that they were
time.
putting them together, I started to do this in the last couple of weeks, and it
It's
works
very
extremely well.
smooth. I mean, how they've
The
done
one
it.
thing I wish,
Yeah.
the one thing I wish, and they've done this with a couple of other apps over the time. I wish that, to be honest with you, I wish things like Apple Notes and Apple Reminders and this were available on
Mm.
other platforms. I really wish they were in. I could integrate them into my Windows
They
work
say
life.
this will be, whether it will be on Windows or not, but they say it will be through the iCloud app.
Mm.
Well, that's half of the way there.
At least
Sure.
it's a start. But what I really found interesting here is Apple typically over the years has been very good about not completely Sherlocking other apps when it improves its native apps. But I got to tell you, this one is going to hurt Fantastical big time.
Oh, sure.
There's only one calendar
Sure.
out there that really does this right now or before this, and that was Fantastical.
Sure.
I had it. I had a subscription. The problem is that app had gotten way more expensive than what it was worth. $97.48 a year for a freaking calendar.
It's too much.
I paid the same thing for my family membership of Microsoft 365. Come
Right.
on.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
this does the same thing and is free.
You're
So
right.
I'm sorry, Fantastical, you better find another job because
Agree.
it's just it's going to happen. I've already pulled the plug. I canceled my Fantastical solution.
And that's too
it'll end
bad.
in November, and that's it. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, but
Oh, sure.
No, I don't think you
Absolutely.
are either.
I honestly think if you try the Apple Calendar in conjunction with Apple Reminders,
Mhm.
you'll be very pleasantly surprised.
And I will add that unlike Fantastical, these are separate apps and they just function together. Actually, for me, that's great because it's quicker, cleaner.
Well,
I
yeah,
just want to look at
what
something, one piece of it.
Fantastical did, it
Right.
let Apple Reminders integrate into its calendar.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
but this is
Right.
a native thing and free. Free is good,
Yep.
folks.
And a little cleaner too, I would say.
It is cleaner.
But it is nice. It's nice to see. It really is nice to see them do it.
Yeah, it's almost like Apple's woken up and said, we're going to start making our apps better, even if they do usurp some other ones. But I'm sorry, I just don't care.
Well, and it's not like they didn't exist when Fantastical came on the market.
That's true.
That's true.
They didn't say, hey, there's a market we should get into. They were already in the market. They just didn't integrate their two apps. That's all. So,
and they're somewhat hurting themselves because
they are.
Fantastical is a top dog up there. It's one of the million plus apps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
well, there we go.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, there we go.
Another good part. I'm glad I did go ahead and get on the beta of both of these. This has been the best beta I've been on ever with Apple. Period.
Over the last, I have been on. I was on the Sonoma beta. Was on the and I'm on the Sequoia beta.
Year was the only one.
Right. I've been on two, and honestly, these last two have been really solid.
Yep.
You really have to be a true Mac head, all right? A true Mac head to be able to catch things that are off in the public betas. And,
I think iOS 18
and then submit feedback to that effect,
iOS 18 has got a couple little glitchy things that are going on.
I agree with you.
And there are a couple little things here in the Mac version as well.
Yeah, I'm talking,
but they're very small. But they're very small, guys.
Right.
They're not going to. Let me put it this way: if you were to, I'm not telling people to do this, but if you were to have made this your daily driver,
right,
you're going to be hard pressed to see these problems. Wouldn't stop you from working. The problems that I've seen.
This is what I'm saying. This is exactly what I'm saying. I agree that you should not use a beta operating system for your daily driver.
Absolutely.
There's too much that can go wrong. There's too many opportunities for things to twist sideways. But
and they do sometimes.
If you were to do such a thing, you wouldn't be too disappointed because
nothing I've seen yet anyway.
Agreed.
Still rears ugly head, but so far.
And speaking of that, really quickly, let me give you a great example of a typical problem with iOS 18 that doesn't hurt you. When you're on a phone call and you're looking at your screen, when you close it, when you hit the off button,
Right.
every button on the keypad, including that red one, there's no numbers on it. They just turn to a white
Right.
or red, and it lasts for 2 seconds, but it doesn't affect you. So, like Chris said,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt you operationally.
I'm seeing, on for example, on the Mac OS, I'm seeing occasionally when I'm using an external monitor, it'll blink and refresh the other monitor in a very clumsy way. It's a half a second thing. It's not doing it all the time. It's an occasional thing. It's just a nuisance. It doesn't stop me from working in any way, shape, or form. On iOS, if I get like an Excel file or a link to an Excel document out there, like we get the show notes that way, it will not open it sometimes from mail. I can copy the link and paste the link and open it that way, but I cannot open it directly from mail without it crashing mail. That's minor. That's the kind of stuff that always happens. These little one-off things. It doesn't stop you from working, and it'll get cleaned up. They're going to get cleaned up in later betas. It just is. And sometimes
Very
it's
true.
sometimes it's the side app developers just don't have their act together quite yet, and they take a couple of betas to catch up. So it's all doable. It's nothing. I've been pretty pleased with these betas myself, to be honest with you. They've been pretty solid.
Yep.
So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us to our mobile Linux segment. And this is something that I'm actually very, very excited about. This next item up for bids here is something that I'm really very excited about and very.
Are you really? Are you excited?
I am. I'm excited
enough to go buy one though?
No,
I didn't think so.
Unfortunately, no. Joel, and in preparation for your big hike that's coming up, as we've been talking about for a number of weeks now, you've gone and you've purchased a new smartwatch. Which one was it, sir? And what can you tell us?
Okay, so I picked up the Garmin Fenix 7X Sapphire Solar. I didn't know it was sapphire until I got it. So it's just got the sapphire crystal on the face. Smartwatch. It's and I did not know this until I started researching my purchase. But Garmin OS, the Garmin OS, which runs on the watch, is not Android. It's I don't even know if it's Android based. All right. But it's its own thing. All right. Garmin is the number 2 smartwatch company in the world.
Yeah.
Behind Apple.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
Which I did not know that.
So many different Android Wear and Wear OS watches that are out there.
So it has a lot of the same features that you have probably seen on the Apple Watch Ultra.
Sure.
It has multi-band GPS. I want to say it has an app ecosystem, but it's nowhere near either Wear OS or Watch OS in its depth. But you don't need it to be. The screen is a trans-reflective screen. You guys probably can barely see it on the webcam there. But so what that is a trans-reflective pixel dot screen. So in layman terms, it's very similar to an e-ink screen. So if the pixel is lit up, like for example, it says it's 842 on my watch right now. That whole watch face, as I'm looking at it right now, is using 0 battery. Okay, so what does that mean here? That means in an average daily use with a workout and just wearing it around the house, the estimated battery life is almost a month.
Wow. On a single charge. On a single charge. Which is an amazing thing, because with most smartwatches, all right, when you use the features, all right, which they want you to do, right, you're at best you're going to get about 3 to 5 days, call it about 4-ish.
And that's being really generous.
And that's being generous. It is. You're right.
Joe, is it a little bit dim, or does it still stand out good enough to?
Probably where it's the worst is when I'm inside. Like if I'm outside on the trail, the sunlight will light it up. And speaking of sunlight, if you see, I don't know if you can see it on the cam, but if you see, I can kind of see the ring around the screen here.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Right there.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a solar cell.
Mhm.
As I'm out hiking, the watch will charge off of the sun.
So that's not bad, especially if you
So,
spend a lot of
Oh,
time outside.
Yeah,
Right.
so the thing is,
That's the key,
you're
yeah.
not driving a lot of apps on it, so you're not going to draw the power that way. It's got a solar thing, so it's going to charge. It's designed for use outside. It's not designed
absolutely, it's absolutely
it's not designed for the same
that.
thing. It's not the same use case that we would have for an Apple
Right,
Watch or for
totally
or
different.
More or
Samsung
less,
Watch.
some of the
That's not-
smartwatches, yeah. Although they pretend to be like that because you got the Samsung Ultra, then you got the Apple Ultra. But this blows the battery life on any of those out of the water. Now, I will say
Absolutely.
that when you're actively tracking, like for example, when I'm on my hike, that will use more battery. Okay, but
Sure.
still, the battery life is 50 hours of tracking. Ish. Yeah. I'm gonna put together an article probably sometime after this hike because I want to find out what's really what it's really like using it after the hike.
Yeah,
Today
sure.
I did some tests. Kind of one nice thing here, and I wish All Trails would do this. There's no All Trails app for the Garmin watches, but you don't need it. You can go to the All Trails website if you have an account, which I do. I paid for the year subscription for that. I can go find the trail, or like in my case, the Mammoth March in the participant packet had a link to the Owl Trails link for the march. Then, right from when Owl Trails, there's a little button that says "Send a Garmin Connect," and bam, it syncs over to the watch. All I got to do is select Navigate on the watch and pull it up, and it will navigate on the watch face using the topo maps and other mapping built into it. So I tried it today on a short hike, and it worked wonderfully. It would also it does pair with your phone, and as I have my headphones connected to my phone, listening to stuff, it would say turn left in 100 feet and stuff like that, which is perfect, exactly what I need. And I can
Nice.
definitely, I can, as I'm walking along, and it's as I move around and stuff, I can see like the compass would change.
Yeah.
Everything
Absolutely.
would change. The
Nice.
whole
I
orientation
imagine
would
I
change.
imagine when it's tracking
So
stuff,
easy.
your leverage, you're going to use a little more power and whatnot and all that.
Yes,
But it's be
you
curious to
will.
see when you, but you, because you're able to sort of partially recharge with the sun, it'd be interesting to see how that extends out
Yeah.
in reality.
Right.
This
the
is-
pulsars,
this
the
is
pulsars
the
are like
50
that, right?
hours of tracking.
Right.
If he's out there for 5 days on a hike, I can't imagine that.
You're not going to run out of power.
You're
That's
not
the
going to
thing.
run out, Joe.
Right. But
No.
with the pulse on your regular standard everyday watch, right? Not that it's a standard everyday watch, it's kind of an expensive watch. The pulsars are like some of the pulsars are like this, where they will go ahead and recharge with either bright light or sunlight. And I would expect that the Garmin is the same way. So
Right.
even if you've got some of that tracking stuff that's going on, if you're out and about or you're in a very well lit room, you're still, while you're burning power with all the tracking and all the other stuff with the music that you've got and the GPS that you've got, the power drain is not going to be as great because you've got the solar charging that's going along with it, which I think pretty
So
cool.
that's part of what extends.
You
That's part of what
can-
extends your time.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing with it is if you don't want to take your phone with you, say you're on a run, you just want to listen to some music.
Mhm.
This has 32 gig of storage. You can copy some MP3 files over to it,
Nice.
pair Bluetooth headphones up to the watch, and
Nice.
use the watch as your MP3 player. I won't do that because I usually going to have my phone with me anyway. So it might be in a fanny pack or in a pocket on my pack or something.
Does
but
it have any apps like you can put Spotify or other stuff on it? Or not?
Spotify. Well, that's the thing though, is there is no version of this that has LTE.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
So you're not streaming music, although it does have a YouTube music app. So, but what I think that's happening with that is it's more or less acting like the Pixel Watch would, in that the music's actually being played on your phone because that's where the internet connection is,
Right.
and then you have the controls on your watch. So, like if
Right.
I'm listening to some music, I have to try that with YouTube Music yet on a hike to see how that works. But
did you say this only works with an Android phone? It doesn't work with an iPhone, or does it work
it
with
works
both?
with iPhone. It works with any of them.
Awesome.
So I
Awesome.
mean,
Yeah.
it's very universal. Is very popular watch in the hiking community. Really, any of the Garmin watches. And if you don't like the trans reflective display, there's another option that Garmin gives you. The Garmin makes one called the Epics, which has almost all the same features. The really nice. I mean, this thing is beefy, dude. It's the 51 millimeter screen.
which
Uh,
is big, which is
Look at the
it's
back.
bigger than
It
the,
is
yeah,
solid. You can see you can see where the button, the little part down here. That's where the cable goes in.
right.
Well,
It does use a
we
proprietary
can,
cable.
but our listeners can't.
Yeah,
That's
I was going to say
correct.
our listeners won't be
You're
able to
correct.
see it, but
It does have a proprietary cable, which is kind of a negative, but but I think most smartwatches have
most
proprietary
smartwatches,
cables
to
now.
be honest, every smartwatch has a proprietary charging cable. The
Yep,
only
they
time
do.
that you get any sort of quote unquote benefit out of a extra charging cable is if the next version of the watch that you get uses the same charging cable as the version before.
In some cases, yeah.
know?
I mean, but like Garmin has been in the smartwatch game probably before Apple.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they've been doing this for a long time. I've been so far very impressed and very satisfied. I got hydration tracking on here. I can, whenever I drink a cup of water, I can go in and plug that into here. It does a lot of features that I probably will never use, like VO2 max
Mhm.
when you're training for a run. We'll see. I'm contemplating.
You've got
starting
some
to do some
time though
5Ks.
before the hike, right?
I do.
All
Yeah,
right, so
13 days away.
all right, so you've got
That
2 weeks. You've got 2 weeks with the
mhm.
watch to gather data and points that you would want to comment on in your
Yeah.
review and or
This is an older
article.
design too.
Yeah,
This is a couple years old, so it's not. Garmin doesn't bring a new watch out every year like Apple does or
Sure.
Google does. Like Google's going to bring a Pixel Watch 3. I'm actually not even interested because the battery life is just phenomenal on this. I have had this on for 2 days and I'm at 83% battery.
see, that's amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, so I mean,
So-
I'm very impressed with it thus far, and we will
Yeah.
see how it works on the trail.
Exactly. So we will
And it's gonna work better than the next item on this show.
right. Well, that's true. So yeah, the next item up for bids here. Google has been doing a lot of product pruning this year. And unfortunately, for those that use the service, the goo.gl URL shortener is gonna go the way of the dodo after August 25th of this year. So this has been around since 2009. So from 2009 to 2024, not quite 20 years, but about you want to say what?
15 years. 15 years.
It's not a bad run for a product, but I mean,
Well, especially at Google.
well,
Yeah, right. Biggest graveyard in the
yeah.
history of.
So
They're very good at
so
getting rid of stuff.
right. So a large percentage of these links are gonna crap out after August 23rd of this year. August 25th of next year is when the service completely dies. So you're gonna get a lot of dialog boxes that when you click a link, it's going to flash something at you that says that this link will no longer function after August 25th, 2025. Visit our blog post for more information about the goo.gl links shutdown. Google goes on further to say that we understand the transition away from using goo.gl short links may cause some inconvenience. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to us at Firebase Support.
Yeah,
Thank you
right.
for
And
using
we'll
the
ignore
service.
you.
Yeah. Thank you for using the service, and we hope you join us in moving forward into new and innovative ways for navigating web and app experiences. If you're into using a URL shortener. We use one here at iTechGear.org in our show notes when I publish the podcast through our host Zencast. We use Teely. But it's only because you only get a certain amount of characters in your show notes area, and otherwise, and honestly, we go a little long usually. So anything that'll shorten it up, I go ahead and I use. So, which is why we use what we do. But other than that, I mean, it's too bad. This is just yet another Google service that
we pick on Google because they probably have the highest percentage of things that they terminate quickly, it seems, and often, but they also try a lot of things.
But this one was around for 15 years, right?
And they're not the only ones that do this. So I want to make it clear that for those of you, just as a side note, Microsoft is forcing people off the newer Outlook soon. So onto the newer Outlook. I mean, so everybody does it, is what I'm getting at.
Right. Although if I know corporate America like I know corporate America, no, they won't. But that's
squawking will ensue.
and it will. But it's well. So long, goo.gl. We will miss you after August 25th of next year. But something that may actually be kind of a nifty thing coming out from Google. It's, they actually outed the Google Pixel 9 Pro. Joel, what's going on with this one?
Well, Google put out a video on YouTube, introducing the Google Pixel 9 Pro.
Yeah.
August 13th is, I believe, I don't know if this is the full announcement or they're going to have an announcement on the 13th. I think they're going to have an announcement on the 13th that'll talk more about it, because they're not going to just release the 9 Pro. They're going to release the 9. They're going to release an XL version of the 9 Pro, which is probably what I'm going to get. And also a new version of the Pixel Fold. So I really like the design. Design does... A lot of people will say that they kind of took a lot of inspiration from Apple, which I think they did. That's fair.
Yeah.
But I'll also go on to say it looks very different than an iPhone for me. It's got other than like my Pixel 6 has the 6 Pro has that bar. It's kind of where it started. The NAT line has that bar there. So instead of the bar on the back like that, it's still there. It's just a little bit differently shaped. It doesn't kind of integrate into the side of the phone like the previous versions did. New cameras, new Gemini is going to be built into this. I also read some rumors because they're also going to have the SOS feature, the satellite feature, just like the iPhone has now.
Nice.
And it's going to be free for the first 2 years. That's the rumor that I've saw so far. So we'll find out more once we get through the Apple event. I'm excited. It's probably what I'm going to use for my next phone. Probably going to go with the 9 Pro XL.
Nice.
So because I like
large, huh?
Their event is in August, right?
August 13th.
Gotcha.
So,
I've been excited about some of the new pictures that I've seen, certainly of the Fold. I don't like that the camera is only on one side. That makes it wobbly when you want to sit it on the desk. I wish they would have it all the way across. I liked it better that the 8s and the 6s went all the way across. I wish the new Fold would look that way, but so far it doesn't.
Well, this goes. I mean, there's only a little smidgy on each side of that camera bump, though. All right.
No. When you're looking at the 9, I'm talking about the Fold.
Oh, the Fold.
The Fold does not have the bar going all the way across.
Okay.
No.
So, and that's hard when you're using a phone that you're unfolding, and it makes it a little uneven and wobbly. So I'm a little concerned about that. We'll see how that works in practicum. Otherwise, what I'm hearing about the Fold is, it's an awful lot like the OnePlus Open.
It's got a bigger screen on the face. You know,
It's got its screen very close to it and a hinge very close to it. So it's
Hmm.
interesting to see. Well, Google's gotten help on some of these things in the past, so it's possible that they were working with them in part. Who knows? But
Sure.
the point is, it's interesting that they took that, and everybody had been saying the OnePlus Open was kind of the target to beat,
right.
and they made it a lot like it. Oh, okay,
Sure.
good on Google.
Without seeing
Good
the
on
fold,
Google.
without seeing the fold, though, I
person.
am not sold
Yeah.
in person. I am not sold on it. I can tell you right
No.
now. My son, assume Pixel 9 Pro XL, unless I hear differently.
Yep.
Because I need
Yep.
to see that in person. Because if I can
You
see
have
the
to
crease,
see it in person.
if I can see
agree.
the crease, it's not acceptable. I'm just that kind. That's
I mean,
just the
even if
way
you
I
can't
am.
see the crease, will you see the crease in 6 months? That's the other thing.
Yeah, that's also a true statement there
You know-
too. So I'm not sold on the fold yet.
With my OnePlus Open, I mean, it is still in really, really good shape. That fold, you just can't see the crease. You just
But do
can't.
you
It's
use
anything
it every
close to
day,
that.
Chris?
I carry it every day
Okay.
and have been
I was
carrying
gonna
it every
say-
day since I got it. So
If it's anything close to that, yeah, I may go there. But I gotta see it in
telling
person.
you, it's really,
Well,
really
yeah.
nice. But
Joel,
we'll
Joel
see
knows
how-
Joel knows what it looks like. He's seen it.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
good and bad. So he knows whether it will. When you see it, you'll know. Is
This
it
is
anywhere
true.
near there? You'll
This is
know
very,
that right
very
away.
true.
It'll
And
be very obvious.
so
Yes.
one
Yeah.
of the articles that we're citing in the show notes is from 9 to 5 Google. Why does the Pixel 9 Pro Fold look so much like the OnePlus Open? So there you go. There you go.
It
wasn't
doesn't.
just
It
us that
doesn't.
kinda
The,
saw
the
that, but
OnePlus
No.
Open has that massive circle for the camera.
it
Well,
does.
the
But
cameras-
you've
but the
got,
cam-
but
but
so they
everything
moved the
else-
sensor. You
But
know, on the
everything
back.
else is the same. It's got the little metal frame around the front and the
Right.
back. It's got almost
Right.
everything else exactly the same.
Right.
The
They
hinge
just moved
looks
the
very similar.
sensors and the lenses. So
Yeah, that's
Right.
it.
and honestly, if you look at the Open where their camera sensor is and where the lenses are and what they've done with the 9 Pro Fold, it's not that far of a move. So,
Yep.
It's interesting.
we'll see.
I will
It'll be
see.
interesting.
We'll see. I may end up also. I currently my 6 Pro is the 512 gig model. I'm nowhere near using all that storage. I may go smaller this time because
Oh,
the pictures. Well, the thing is the pictures. As soon as I get pictures on there, Google Photo automatically grabs them,
Automatically.
uploads
Same with
them, and
iCloud.
deletes them off. So it's like I don't need as much storage. If I'm watching something on it, it's streaming.
True.
The minimum I have is need for storage on
Except
there
when-
is when I
except when you're
download
on the plane.
podcasts. Well,
Right.
when I download podcasts or download stuff, with the Netflix app or something like that. On that side of that coin, I
Sure.
also have an iPad
Oh,
with me
sure.
when I'm on a plane.
It's
Yeah,
not
so,
like you're
right.
editing. You're not editing video on the.
Yeah,
damn
to be-
phone.
Not
to be fair-
necessarily.
No.
Yeah, and to be fair, I'm not a guy that watches movies on my phone. I tend to watch them on my iPad. So
Right.
that's where I throw the storage.
I'm more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
The
gonna say
local
I'm more
storage.
tempted when I upgrade my iPad the next time to get like a terabyte on it, just
Mhm.
because of that one thing. I have edited videos on the phone, but not really all that much with the Pixel 6 Pro because I'm just not. I mean, Columbus. I'm like it's not that exciting. It's not. It's not like I could, like when I was in
Right. It's
traveling
Columbus.
in professional.
It's Columbus. You said it.
Right.
You
So
said
as a
Hey,
professional
hey, hey,
services, it's not
Don't let the
boring.
Chamber of
It's just
Don't let the Chamber of Commerce hear you say that.
right.
True.
I live in Grove City, so I don't care.
Yeah.
It's
But,
funny because even in Columbus, when I go over to the Eastern area, they have
Mhm.
they have a Columbus tourism store in the middle of the mall, which is kind of funny.
Well,
to
that's in
see.
Columbus, though. So I mean,
It is in Columbus. You're not in Columbus proper, so
but
there you
still,
go.
it's like when I was traveling, when I was doing professional services work, I was doing more video creation on the phone. I did a whole bunch of videos. I did and posted to YouTube on when I did a trip to San Diego. So and I did use I use Power Director on my phone. I still subscribe
sure.
to it.
Yeah.
But and occasionally I will do one, but it's not something I'm regularly doing enough to say that I need to get the bigger one. We'll see where the prices hit. If it's not that much
But
more.
I'm looking forward
get
to the new
more.
phones. I'm looking absolutely.
I
forward
am
to them.
too.
No question.
Yeah,
this
have
year,
the
this may be the year that we don't upgrade. So
right. 10
see.
G4 is what it'll have. And that is in the conversation when you think about that, because the next Google versions, the 10s, will have the Tensor G5,
Right.
and that's supposed to be 3 nanometer versus the 4 nanometer that's going to be in the G4. I don't know how I feel.
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's a hard one.
I know I don't want to wait. I know that much. That's that
Sure.
because the Pixel
Yeah,
6
you're
Pro
3
only
years
has one.
behind already, so you
Well,
almost have to.
it almost, the thing is it has a one more major OS version,
And then that's it, right?
security updates for another year after that. So I mean, so if I want to keep up to date on Android, then I'm probably going to look at a new one, which that's
Gotcha.
going to happen. Probably going to happen. I can't tell you. I don't want any of the Samsungs. They're interesting, but they're not.
I really
Yeah,
like
I've
mine.
been
I really
there.
like
I'm
mine.
with you, buddy.
So
It's pure Android
What-
or nothing.
One UI is nice, and one UI and the Android interfaces we have today is nowhere where we were when Motorola had Moto Blur, and
sure. Thank God.
those were much heavy. Oh God, they were awful. But I am very much a pure Android purist, so I usually am in the Pixels. I occasionally, like, I did have the Note 10 Plus. That was the phone prior to this one, and then before that I had the Pixel 2. Pixel 2 XL. But so we'll see how that goes. I know
It's funny because the Pixels aren't even pure anymore either. They've got features added that other phones
it's
don't have. So they're not
Pixel-fied.
pure. Yeah,
it's
I'm with you.
Pixel-fied,
I'm
but
with
it's
you.
as close.
It is
as close as you
Pixel-fied,
can get.
but
So
right. Anyway,
I'm looking forward anyway. I think we all are.
So good things to look forward to and some pretty cool stuff. We're gonna get to the heart of the matter here in just a minute. All right, but I want to go ahead and get there and our Windows segment right after this brief message. Hi, this is Christopher Spera with iTechGear.org, and I'm here to tell you that iTechGear.org and the iTechGear Weekly are on Patreon. Patreon is a platform for creators, allowing them to express their creative side in an organized, marketable fashion and earn a living or create a really cool kind of side hustle. You can create a community around your hobby of choice. You can gain followers. You can get members and supporters all along the way. You can create subscription products that, for a pledged amount every month, you'll provide to your members and followers. Setup is easy. Prices are reasonable, and you can have your pledges auto deposited into an account of your choice every month. With iTechGear.org, our initial offering is a monthly newsletter for just $3 a month. This is our initial offering, and we'll have other tiers and other products and other offers up in the coming months. Become a patron of our site. Grow with us, and we'll provide you with the tech understanding that you're missing right now. Join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/iTechGear. That's www.patreon.com/iTechGear. And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 99. No, it really is not Microsoft's fault, kids. And like I said, getting down to the heart of the matter, the world crashes due to CrowdStrike. Joel, give us the brief. Give us the brief update on what happened and why and what's going on with
All right. So what happened? CrowdStrike's Falcon malware tool, which is very, very popular with 298 of the Fortune 500 companies having it deployed.
3/5.
My company has it deployed on every Windows machine, including laptops.
Right.
All right. And that's very, 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 very common. It's very used in the industry as a great, well, kind of great malware in a malware tool. So what had happened is CrowdStrike has a kernel driver that's designed to talk to Ring 0 in the operating system, which is normally the space where the Windows kernel, as well as like things like my graphics driver and stuff run. And that's because they want to be able to intercept the malware as fast as they can, because they want to execute the code at the kernel level versus the user in the user space.
Right. But CrowdStrike in and of itself is a security firm and software
Correct.
development firm that is currently providing a Windows 10 update service for folks, because Microsoft is no longer providing new features to Windows 10. All right.
Right.
So CrowdStrike is a company that will either take Windows 10 or 11 features that are out
Right.
and backport them into Windows 10 for you, or add new features on their own.
They do
Right.
that. Right. They do
They do
that.
that.
But as far as I know,
And there was an
this
update, and there was
right,
an
there was an
update recently
update.
from CrowdStrike,
Right.
right? That
they
included
updated the definitions
right.
for Falcon, and unfortunately,
this wasn't related to their backporting feature. This was relating to their
This was
malware
related.
feature.
There was an update that came out from CrowdStrike
Right.
that
And
included
their
an update to Falcon. Right.
Their definitions have P code in them, which means it's also delivering code that now can execute at the kernel level.
Mhm.
Well, one of the problems was in a video that we will link to was one of those files where it had nothing but binary zeros in it, and the CrowdStrike driver said,
Yeah, it kind of
decides to
went
crash the server.
Right.
Yeah, and because CrowdStrike also has it set that when you reboot, which this would cause a blue screen and a reboot,
it went into a boot loop. Right.
It will go into a boot loop because it would try and load
loop.
that driver every time. And if they would have just not loaded that driver, then it would have been able to boot the rest of the way, and you could fix CrowdStrike or Falcon, I should say. So,
right. But the big deal was they updated there was an update that came down from Windows update that came down from CrowdStrike. It included an update to Falcon, because that one file that you had mentioned contained all binary zeros. It made the kernel crash, and therefore the machine went into a perpetual boot loop.
But I think it's important to let people know that Falcon in itself is not a bad solution.
No, it's actually a very good product. It is.
And I don't think bad of Falcon just because this happened to it. That's all.
Right. And CrowdStrike is actually a decent company to provide these services, these IT services, to a number of different, well, most of the
enterprise,
the world
big enterprise, right?
It's still running Windows 10 because they're not ready to move to Windows 11. They want the stability that is Windows 10. So
this might be a bigger financial impact than the Java vulnerability was a few years ago.
Sure.
Because it affected far more people. You saw airlines. One airline that wasn't impacted was Southwest, because they have really ancient hardware at Southwest. They're still running Windows 3.11.
There you go.
It wasn't just Windows 10 computers that were infected.
No,
it was
pretty much any version.
Falcon.
It was pretty much anybody running Falcon. Period.
Unless you were on Linux, which Falcon will run on Linux
or Mac
OS.
Or Mac OS, right?
Yeah.
So
and you were likely affected. And you're right in saying that this particular issue affected a lot more people. It actually reached down into the consumer level because it affected people's ability to use payment services at point of sale. As an example, I went even after the quote unquote all clear, unless those servers that were affected were rebooted, and a lot of them weren't until late at night that evening. I couldn't go to the gas station and pay at the pump. All right, with my card. It was cash only in a lot of places that were affected by this.
Yeah,
and even
in that way.
Even people that use what we would have thought of as unrelated services, like maybe we use Apple Pay. Apple Pay didn't work at certain places because these servers that it had to pass through were affected by this.
And I was looking on Facebook. There was somebody said he was in the middle of buying a new car, right in the process with the finance guy, and shit hit the fan, and that was it.
This is interesting. This is interesting because being up in the Detroit area like I am, there was a big hit on the car dealers last month,
right,
where all their networks went down, and that was a hack.
Right.
And so people were very, very, very concerned because this has impacted the financial livelihoods of these dealers. You know, you think it's not a big deal; they'll just come back tomorrow and buy the car. It doesn't work like that sometimes.
Right.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
There
You
was
either sell that car today, or you don't necessarily make that sale. They may go somewhere else.
So I think what's interesting about this and in the whole is not just what was impacted, but what is indirectly impacted. And the costs associated with those kind of secondary filters out. And that goes to show you how interconnected all this stuff is.
FAA was hit with this. Government systems were hit with this.
TSA couldn't process in some cases. There was all sorts of, depending on what airport you were at, there were all kinds of issues.
Right.
So they weren't able to transfer. They weren't able to process passports coming in. All the automated systems broke.
Exactly. And even though this really was something that affected Windows or the quote unquote Windows kernel, this was not Microsoft's fault. This has nothing to do with Microsoft at all.
As a matter of fact, Larry, as you pointed out, I think you pointed out in the pre-show, some of the steps that Microsoft took. Really, we do bash Microsoft and anybody else who we think is doing us all wrong. And I think it's important to call out when they actually did something good here. And in this case, they actually did the right thing.
Yep. They didn't have to do that.
And they didn't have to do it.
And what did they do specifically again?
They actually provided a fix that I just saw in there was a KB they issued that gave you the fix on how to fix your machine if you were impacted. Which that's kind of what my company did. I wasn't involved. That was just the craft catcher, you know. We're like, we know. I'm like, you put a case in on your non-prod and your production's down? Really? Okay. Anyway, I'm like, we didn't forget. We're not going to forget about your non-prod. It's like, come on. So, but in CNN estimates that this could cost $1 billion.
I wouldn't be surprised at that.
With this outage.
With a B.
Overall?
With a B.
Right.
Overall with a B.
Overall with a B for all the companies that were impacted. We were impacted, which means all of my clients were impacted. So you're talking anywhere between 50, 60 schools at least. It was a very bad day for anybody who worked in IT, unfortunately, on Friday.
Yeah, it really was.
It was probably one of the worst days I've ever had.
Yeah, it was a bumpy day, no question.
Yeah, the first half of my day was just clicking. Yeah, I know. Click, copy, paste. Click, copy, paste. Making sure the uniform message. I know. The message went out. Yeah, we got. Oh, yeah. This is that outage you heard about. What's funny is the ones that put cases in, hey, the system's down, and then they didn't know why. It's like I knew before I even went to my doctor's office, and my appointment was at 8:45 in the morning. And I'm sitting there in the doctor's office reading my email, and I'm like going, oh God.
It's gonna be a bad day.
And it was a rough one.
Yeah, especially since I was also the on-call this afternoon. Yeah, so but I want to say probably the majority of the issues of CrowdStrike is fixed now. They've gone, all the workarounds have been applied for most companies. I didn't really run into any issues anywhere. Even paying with this, because this is Garmin Pay, not Apple Pay or Google Pay.
But again, it wasn't Apple Pay.
But it wasn't Apple Pay that was down. It was a connector that was running Windows in between the two services. That was
so you could have still lost Garmin Pay had you gone to the right store.
Absolutely.
Right. But over the weekend, I used it twice and it worked great. So
I didn't have any trouble either. So I get you.
So I mean, I would say 90% of it is fixed. There might be some. I think you're going to get still going to be some fallout on Monday when you come into your offices. there may be still a few systems that might have been missed or something, but I would say probably the majority of people are fixed. But but it was not Microsoft in this case, unless you want to blame them for the architecture of the operating system that allowed this to happen, which you can do.
Yeah,
because Microsoft should. The one thing Microsoft should do as a result of this, they should put some more protections in the kernel that when stuff like this happens, that it can either kick that kernel code out or recover from it more gracefully. So, but
yeah. So we'll also have
Yeah.
in our show notes the link for the KB from Microsoft to actually fix this particular problem. So,
Yep.
so that's cool. So this was a really ugly situation. I know it affected my company. I know it affected a number of different companies around the
I'm
world.
hoping it's a
Like
wake-up call.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
This could happen easily again for other reasons. This was
Right,
not
for
an
other
attack,
reasons.
but now that somebody's seen that it can happen, who knows?
Well, this is what happens.
Exactly.
Like if y'all have watched the movie called The Net,
Yeah.
with Sandra Bullock, and everybody in the world was using the gatekeeper software.
Right.
Everybody in the world should not be using CrowdStrike.
Right.
They should be using a variety of things.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So
sure.
Stagger the impact, guys.
Absolutely. Yep. So anyway, so I want to go ahead and move us forward just a little bit here. Interestingly enough, speaking of Windows, in our Windows segment, Windows 11 23H2 is now available for download by everyone. And of course, this was the version of Windows 11 that came out in November, December of last year. And it's August, right? Effectively. All right. End of July.
Well, good on them.
Good on you, Microsoft. Thank you very much for the timely delivery of your operating this is we've been planning for 24H2 now, at least honestly since probably about March.
We've been certainly talking about features in 24H2 for quite a while.
And the fact that 23H2 is now available to everyone for download really just kind of makes me wonder what the heck, it really it really bothers me that it takes this long, 7-8 months for the for the major update from last year to get to everybody on the planet. If there was really that much of a concern on keeping everybody safe and free from harm, it would be, Johnny on the spot. Can we get it out? Can we get it out? Can we get it out? And I get it that there are drivers and whatnot that may not necessarily be available or ready for prime time because, hey, reasons, right? But I don't know. This one bothered me. So, but if you're running Windows 11 and you aren't running at least 23H2, now's the time to get it. If you're running an older version, go hit start, click settings, and then click Windows Update and download the latest updates. If you aren't doing this on a regular basis, Windows 11 tries to remind you and do it for you to get those updates every so often. But still, this is something that you guys should probably be doing on a regular basis. I know, honestly, I check every day. I literally check.
I do it automatically.
Again, this assumes that you're on Windows 11, not 10, of course, and this assumes that you've got hardware that can support all this. But basically, the big thing to me isn't whether you get the latest and greatest features as much. It's you got to keep at least your security patches updated. You got to at least do that.
The antivirus updates, all that stuff. Every day they come in.
At minimum, every day there's something.
Absolutely. And then, which is one of the reasons why I check every day.
Me too.
I check every day largely because I use Windows Defender. I subscribe to Windows Defender. I use the bought
So do
version.
I. Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Very, very good, built into the operating system, and from a consumer perspective, probably the best choice for something that's not going to be a huge drain on your resources.
Well,
on your
especially
system.
if you have a subscription to Microsoft 365, you get it free.
There you go. This is what I'm saying, kids. All right. So I would go that way. But so I get the latest and greatest antivirus definitions, and those are available at least twice, 2-3 times a day. There's updates to them. All right. So
Seems like it.
so you can go ahead and grab them
And they're a lot more reliable than what we're going to talk about shortly.
yeah.
Oh gosh, help us. Here we go.
Oh man.
Why don't we just head down that path?
Why don't we
head
just
down
go
that path?
there?
Honestly, I am okay with this. We had talked about this about Kaspersky getting banned, Kaspersky software and antivirus getting banned in the US. There are some very serious ties between Kaspersky software and the Russian government, more so I think than some of the stuff that's going on in China, but I could be wrong. But the long and the short of it here, this week they went ahead and they laid off their entire U.S. staff, and they are closing down their U.S. operations because that
This is
ban
not
not going to be
Kaspersky's
rescinded.
first rodeo in this business. I mean,
Yeah.
No.
they have been suspect for decades. They really have.
What
Yeah.
I find, I don't want to get too much in the politics of this. What's interesting is when the Chinese companies like TikTok and all the TikTok ban are accused of, doing things along in collusion with with their government to quote, I don't know, spy on people or whatever it might be.
Whatever.
But the point is, whenever that says, the Chinese folks tend to go, wait a minute, no, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing these other things.
Right.
Kaspersky has never even bothered. They just like,
Do it.
okay, we're done.
This is what I'm
Which I
saying.
found kind of interesting. Other than to say, yeah, we didn't do that, but beyond that, that's it. They've never offered any reason
You
to
did
say,
this.
think
No, we
otherwise.
didn't.
And that's it. And
that's it.
And there's and our folks have been saying, look, here's some code. This is
Did
problematic.
Not, did too.
So
That's
I don't
about
know.
it.
I don't know. But the reality is they're out, and now they're laying off people.
And now they're laying people off, and so their entire U.S. staff is gone. All right, so there's a lot of good folks that did some decent work that are looking for work now, which is too bad. But
I hope they don't have too hard a time finding jobs, not only because of jobs being out there or not being out there, but because
of who they work
tagging
for.
them for who they work for. Yeah,
right.
It's not on them. It really isn't.
No, it's not. They did what they were supposed to do. They went ahead and made the code. All right, with somebody over in Russia that stuck the back doors in, right?
Exactly. So
did the other stuff that got them banned in the first place. So it's too bad, but man, yeah.
Oh, it's a hard market.
It is a tough.
Well,
market
this was
out there.
far from a low-level mistake.
It
It is.
tough right
That's
now.
correct.
It is tough right now, and to be honest,
yeah, where do you go with this? Where do you go?
No,
really?
It's really, really hard right now. I know there are. I've had a number of folks that have come to me, and I've got about 3,500 to 4,500 different contacts on LinkedIn, and I've got a lot of folks that are pinging me and saying, "Hey, do you know of anything? I need a job. Hey, can you help me out with?" And I'm like, dude.
And on the side note, I was just reading. There's a series of articles that came out that talk about the fact that people are jumping jobs less than they were a year or 2 or 3 years ago because they're not because those options aren't there.
Right.
And that was the number one reason why they're not making jumps. Or when the options are there, the offers aren't what they used to be. That kind of thing. So there's a whole lot of reasons people are not going, and so it's a tightening market, guys. And so these guys losing their jobs in that market. It sucks. I mean, it's true, but You know, what are you going to do?
2 years ago, everybody would say, "Oh, I can't work at home. Well, screw you. I'm leaving." Now it's
Right.
not like
And
that.
then and it
Now
would
it's
and it
like
would cause a problem. And it would cause a problem for the
for
hiring
the
company.
employer.
Yeah.
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 And
So
now
not
it's
anymore,
different.
kids. Not anymore. The companies have basically looked and said, okay, bye.
See, right
Fine.
now it's a
See ya.
seller's market out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
We'll see. Well, these things are cyclical, though, guys. You and I, we all both
Mhm.
know it. These will come back around, then it'll be a buyer's market again. It's
Yep.
just how this stuff works.
Yep.
It every few years this shifts. So, but
Right.
this is where we are right now. So, you know, you got to take these things. You got to do
what it
these things with
is.
caution. You got to think. You got to realize that it's a challenge right now. I hear from people all the time as well. So I get it. I
Absolutely.
get it.
Absolutely. It's too bad. And it's if there's anything that can be done, you know, those of that are affected or looking for work, if I can help, you know that I will. And you've always known that. But right now it just sucks to be out there.
It
It
does.
really, really does. So all right. Well, you know, I want to move us to our tip of the week segment. I want to go ahead and remind everybody that, hey, you know, iTechGear was founded with the intent of making technology easy for everyone. And this team of writers has dedicated most of their careers to that specific purpose. And so every week we're going to have a weekly tip, computing tip, authored by one of these experienced peoples. All right. If you've got questions,
Do we know these
requests.
peoples?
Oh, I know them
who
all.
are these people?
Who are these
You
people?
Yes.
peoples, and we'll talk
You-
about you
I
guys
have
writing
people. I
tips
have some people.
in the post show.
People.
Because some of the peoples ain't holding up their end, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, Grandpa Shark. Come on.
Appreciate it.
Do.
Anyway, yeah, thank you. Anyway, questions, requests, and suggestions can be sent to tips@itechgear.org. And if you've got them, send them. If we have them, we'll give you your 15 minutes of fame. This week, we're going to go back to the beginning, folks. We're going to go back. We are. Step into the Wayback Machine.
Are we getting the Wayback Machine, Sherman? Are we
Yeah,
getting
come
the
on,
Wayback
Sherman,
Machine?
get into the
All
Wayback
right.
Machine with me. Come
Let's
on, here we
go.
go. All right, so Microsoft Word. Everybody loves and uses Microsoft Word, or at least has at some point, likely in their career or in their computing life. You've probably gone ahead and done it. And 9 times out of 10, you know, you've had a page, a blank page somewhere that got inserted because of one function or another, or where you weren't necessarily expecting the page to be. And it isn't always easy, or it isn't always easy to know exactly how to get rid of that page. So if you would like to
how do you do
delete,
it?
interesting that you've asked. I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
So one of the things that you might want to go ahead and do if you're on a Windows machine and you've got Word open, you go ahead and press Control-Shift-8, and that's the number 8. Or if you're on a Mac, it's Command-8. All right. And again, the number 8. This will show the paragraph marks on the page. All right. If you've got a blank page that you want to get rid of, scroll down just past it, and you'll see the paragraph mark at the top of the next page. All right. Hit the backspace or delete key and get rid of that paragraph mark, and that will get rid of the previous empty page. All right. These pages often show up either at the beginning or at the very end of a document, and you don't necessarily want to print a blank page unless, of course, you know, this page is intentionally left blank. And 9 times out of 10, you print that on the page to go ahead and make somebody know that it's actually supposed to be there. But deleting that paragraph mark will go ahead and get rid of that page's previous. So go ahead. You want to get rid of the extra blank page? This is the best way to do it. And there you go.
How simple.
There you go.
And that is our tip of the week. Want to move us to our pick of the week segment. All right. And again, I want to remind everybody that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we individually purchase and actually use, and we, like enough that we want to recommend them to you, our growing listener base. These aren't paid advertisements or items that we have an affiliated marketing relationship with. If they were, we'd have to disclose that information up front. These are sincerely things that we believe in, and we want to bring them to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we like you.
Thank you. So this week, due to a lot of the storm activity that's been experienced in the Gulf of Mexico and near the Houston area, my mother has decided, there's a lot that's going on, and she's in her 80s, and she wants to make certain that she can see who's at the house, either when she's at the hospital for dialysis treatments, or she doesn't have to, she doesn't move very fast anymore. She wants to have a video doorbell and be able to go ahead and have it available so she can answer the door from her phone or her iPad or whatever. Unfortunately, she needs a Wi-Fi extender. So I actually happened to find one and recommended it to her this past week. And it is the Extendtech Wi-Fi signal extender booster. It boosts up to 10,000 your Wi-Fi signal. It'll help it cover 10,000 square feet. Long range internet, Wi-Fi booster, 84% faster, broader than ever, Wi-Fi repeater with an Ethernet port, one tap easy setup, blah, blah, blah. $60, $58. And I've actually looked this one up on a couple of different lists on the internet, and this particular, the Extendtech brand has been recommended probably more so than any other.
Does it include the big bruiser to keep your neighbors from jumping on your network?
Well, that's only if you A, live in the UK, and B, if you are running an open Wi-Fi network, you're an idiot. So
yeah, well, we don't even have to go there.
Yes, I need the Wi-Fi. I need the Wi-Fi.
You know what? An extender is a really good investment in certain instances. Obviously, a full mesh network is better because it gives you either a dedicated or at least a Wi-Fi backhaul channel. But
it will.
If you can't do that, or if you're like your mom, and she's not going to want to go.
She doesn't need a mesh network.
3 access point net. No. So this is a good thing. They work well, but they're,
and for $60, because those mesh network routers,
3 or 4 or 500 for the
they can be
cheapest
anywhere between 300 just for the base to about 900.
The newest,
for the newer ones, right?
Wi-Fi 7, $1,900.
Yeah,
holy crud!
Which is totally just absolutely bonkers. Forget it. Nobody's ever going to do that. No. So this one for $60, and you plug this into a regular electrical outlet, right? It powers it up. It'll start broadcasting. You find it on your phone, attach it to your existing wireless network, and it'll just bump and boost the signal. So at $60 a pop, if you need to repeat this thing around the house, you should be able, for $120, you get 2 of them. It's not a bad way of extending your network through a large house. And she does have
not at all
pretty big house. It's
we recommend these a lot down here. People move here, retire, they bring with them their old 20-year-old Wi-Fi port router and they just won't update it. So we just recommend this, and they're happy.
Right. And this is your standard 802.11a BGN, which should do you probably just as much as you want. We'll work with just about any network router, wireless router that you have, and it'll hit the 2.4 gigahertz bandwidth without any problem. So, good
there
stuff.
You go.
$60. And that, kids, is the show. This has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 99. Number 99, guys.
99.
Next week is what?
All right. This is the last time we're going to be
100.
in dual digits. Episode number 99. No, really, it's not Microsoft's fault, kids.
Does that mean we're
Recorded-
getting old?
Recorded
Yes.
live
Oh, yeah.
Sunday, July 21st, live from iTechGear Central for Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, Brother Joe McLaughlin, and Mr. Chris Gavula. This is Christopher Spera saying we will see you next time.